Okay, so this one is going to be the last one of the 4 videos for this session, and this one will be focusing on adult learning. A number of us will be teaching adults, so this will be helpful ideas as we are teaching, as we're working with adults. So understanding adult learners, why should adult learners be treated differently from children in a classroom setting? So when we teach adults, we need to recognize adults are different from the way children are, and even the way that they learn as well, obviously. So we'll be looking at some of those concepts. What makes adults different from children? It seems to be very straightforward, very clear. Adults are different from children. But then is that truly reflected in the way we teach? Because sometimes we can come into a classroom and assume the adults that are sitting in front of you, just because they are quietly sitting and you're the one who's standing, we tend to assume that our adult students in the classroom, they are blank slate. They don't know anything. And so the way we teach reflects what we believe about adults. And yet that's not the way it is. So who they are, what they have in them, and how they learn and all that, it is very significantly different. And therefore the way we teach adults should also be different. It doesn't mean we don't treat children right. It's just a point that I want to make here is adults learn differently because of the backgrounds and different things. And we'll be looking at some of those characteristics here. So andragogy and pedagogy. Pedagogy generally literally means leading children, has to do with teaching children, leading children. That's the pedagogy, okay? It's the way of teaching children. It is an education method in which the learner is dependent. That's the assumption. The learner is dependent on the teacher for guidance, for evaluation and acquisition of knowledge. So the child doesn't have much knowledge, can't do things. So the child is dependent on the teacher. And therefore the teacher has to be doing a lot of the guiding, the leading. That is pedagogy, where it is teacher focused, teacher centered primarily, and the students are passively guided and led by the teacher wherever the teacher is leading. That's the pedagogy aspect of it. That's one spectrum. The other spectrum would be the adult focused one, which is andragogy. Andragogy, this is the adult learning theory. It refers to the methods and approaches used in adult education, and it is directed towards self-actualization, gaining experience, and problem solving. So this one moves towards the other spectrum, where the teacher allows the students to be engaged, to determine where they're heading, to be engaged in their own learning experiences, in solving problems that they already have. Okay. Now these are the 7 characteristics, and I will share each one of them. We'll talk about each one of them. So the first characteristics when we think of adults is they are adults, and therefore they are adult learners, coming to study on their own choice and desire to be treated as adults and not as children. So when they come into a classroom as adults, they come into a classroom because they have chosen. It's not because their mom is dragging them to the classroom, which is the case with children. But with adults, you choose. You have chosen to be in this classroom. You have chosen to open this video and watch this video. It is your choice that you made, and therefore you have to be treated as an adult. Second one is engaged in continuing process of growth. The participants are engaged in change in various ways. They are not passive. They are actively engaged in a dynamic process of growth. So as adult learners, they are engaged in a number of ways to grow. It's not only the classroom setting, but they are growing in many ways. So adults are not passively seated, stagnant, but hopefully they are growing. Some of us may have stagnated and not growing in any way, but the idea is adults in their social interactions, workplaces, and all of the different areas, they are constantly growing. They constantly growing means they are gaining experiences. They are not open slate when they come into a classroom. They are people who are growing in different ways. They may not know the thing that you're speaking about, but they may have an idea about it. They may have other experiences that can contribute to whatever you're teaching. Third one is they all bring a package of experience and values. This is the idea here. As they are interacting with the society, with a number of things they have been exposed to in life, when they come into a classroom, they come with an experience, with a reservoir of experience that you can tap into as you're teaching. So a new student is not actually new. Each person comes with experiences and values. Rejection of learner experience may imply rejection of the learner. So we need to acknowledge when a student is in your classroom, we need to acknowledge that student actually has a lot of experience in him. There is something that you can tap into, that you can use in the learning process for the student's own learning, and also the student can contribute to your own learning as well, because there are things that you may not know that the student already knows. So recognize that the students, the adult learners in your classroom, they are people, men and women, who have great experience that you can tap to into the learning. So it's not like you have to be guiding the student the whole time. You have to just be pouring information into the student, assuming that the student doesn't know anything, because the student in your classroom does actually know some things. A fourth one is they usually come to their learning with set intentions. They have some plans. They have some plans, desire that they want to achieve when they come into a classroom. They're not just coming. Of course, we have those circumstances where a student just comes. But then there is an intention. When you come into this classroom, when you're attending these classes, you have a certain intention. You want to finish this so that you can get there somewhere. So you want to finish this so that you can be prepared for something. So you have a certain intention there. Enrich their roles, qualifications, or just enrich their knowledge in certain ways. So their roles in ministry, their qualifications, some of us want to have a degree, a master's degree, so that we can be better equipped, better qualified for it, or even just learning how to do certain things so that we are equipped for the ministry. Okay. Fifth one is they bring certain expectations about learning itself, perceptions of what education is, its purpose, and how it is done based on their prior experience of education. So when they come into a classroom, they have an expectation on what kind of content you will give them, an expectation on how you intend to be teaching. So they come with a certain expectation based on their prior experiences. So it will be important for us to understand what is your expectation from this class. In terms of teaching styles, in terms of content, and all of those ones, because they have an intention, expectation. And understanding that will help us to design the course. Finally, they all have competitive interests. Adult learners have other responsibilities, making education to be secondary. So with adult education, the adults in our classrooms, there are men and women who have multiple responsibilities. Education in your classroom is not the only responsibility they have. They might be pastors here, lawyers there, a mom, a dad. They have a lot of responsibilities, and education, being in our classrooms, being in our setting where we're teaching, is one of the many responsibilities that they have. So they have very many competing responsibilities. So when we teach adults, we need to be cognizant of that they have other responsibilities as well. So that helps us to be more pastoral in our teaching of adults. Not with me though. Okay, finally, they all possess set patterns of learning. Different students learn differently, different learning styles. Over time, they have identified the best way they each learn. The space of learning also differs among the students. Ones with experience in an area learn faster than those without experience. So we need to recognize that our students are different. Diversity in their backgrounds, diversity in the way they choose to learn. Their learning styles would be different. Some students may be very analytic. They just want information to be poured in. Others might be more hands-on kind of people. They want to be able to do things. Others might be more dynamic. They want to be creative. They want to come up with ideas. So we need to recognize they are different and therefore diversify the way we teach. Backgrounds are also different. Some of our students have moved academically a lot. They are readers. They have been exposed to reading a lot. So when they come into classroom, they are fast. Some of us have been in ministry for so long and separated from education for a while. So when you come into a classroom, getting into that rhythm takes time. So as a teacher, we need to recognize that diversity in backgrounds, diversity in teaching styles, and all of those ones, so that we are more effective in the way we teach. So finishing off, just for us to reflect, to think about, is learning tasks. Looking back at the 7 characteristics of adult learners, I wonder which one seems to be very much appropriate for your circumstance, for yourself. Which one stuck with you, resonated well with you? What does that mean to the way you want to learn for yourself? And then finally, I want to ask you, what do you think this means to the way you yourself are going to be teaching? Okay, this one you can just find it, read it later on. I will not cover it in this one. This is the distinction between pedagogy and andragogy, and it's a table that shares the difference between the two of them. You will notice there's quite a bit of difference in terms of the concept of the learner. What does andragogy believe about the learner? What does pedagogy believe about the learner? The role of the learner's experience. Of course, with pedagogy, you don't assume the student has any experience. So when you teach the student as if it's blank. Readiness to learn. Which the students, are they ready? As you can see here, main teaching technique in pedagogy will be, teaching techniques are transmittal techniques, because you assume the students don't have anything, so you want to just transmit information. In the case of the adult learners, andragogy, main teaching technique is experiential. You get the students to experience, to do certain things on their own, because you feel like they need to be able to do it. They know, they have the capacity to do it. So it continues with that one. So organization of learning, the way you organize it, orientation to learning, all of these ones, there is a distinction between the two of them. So you ask yourself, so which way do we go? Do we go pedagogy when I teach? Do I teach pedagogically as if the student is dependent on me? Or do I teach as if the teacher is independent, can function on his own? What we will see later on is this one here. So Malcolm Knowles, who is the one who came up with this idea of andragogy, he says this, and this will be the finishing point for us. So Knowles changed his position, where he was emphasizing on andragogy for teaching adults. He changed his position on the application of andragogy for adults only, and came to believe that pedagogy, andragogy, a combination of two, represents a continuum. So we have pedagogy, andragogy, a continuum, ranging from teacher-directed to student-directed learning, and that both approaches are appropriate with children and adults, depending on the situation. So we can't say children, they have to be taught as if they are completely dependent, they cannot function on their own, they cannot do things on their own. And adults, they don't need to be dependent, they can just function independently. They have to be actively engaged in all of those kind of things. So we need to be able to combine it. We need to recognize that children, they need to get information passed on, but they need to be actively engaged as well in the learning process. They have the capacity to do it. So we move into the andragogy, pedagogy, a mix of it, according to Knowles. All right, I hope that makes sense. Thank you, and I hope you have enjoyed these 4 sessions. Please do finish all 4 of them together. Bless you.